Greetings from central Finland. I am Professor Pekka Neittämäki from University of Jyväskylä. At the moment I am UNESCO professor. The topic is digital service platforms. I want to thank all participants and organizers in this web seminar. I hope everybody is staying safe during the current crisis. I will speak about digital service platforms, especially in education. First of all, we are very pleased to organize this meeting, and we will do our best to help as well other countries in this education development process which we will have during the crisis and after crisis. First, about our university and faculty. We have had our education more than 50 years. We have multidisciplinary research and education faculty, about 2,500 students, about 60 countries we have students here, and we have about 20 professors. We have very active collaboration with industry. Here you see some photos from our campus. At the moment we have spring, but still we have snow in Lapland, especially we have snow still more than 1 meter. Here we have illustration what we have in our research. As I told, we have multidiscipline faculty. We have left up computation sciences, where we have applied mathematics and scientific computing. We have master program in that area. As well, we have master program in software and telecommunication technology, information systems, and cognitive science and education and technology. We have as well cybersecurity master programs, and activity of computational thinking, data science, and decision making. And we have several activities in disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, deep learning, Internet of Things, blockchains, robotics, hyperspeculation imaging, and virtual reality, and 5G. This multidisciplinary environment makes it possible to develop new kind of education, digital education platforms. What are these digital service platforms? It is well known in business and customers area. We have new business models, Facebook, Google, and so on. We have sharing economics in transportation, housing, new technology in digital banking, environmental, culture, game, music, movies, books, and so on. And the idea is to transfer this best practice from this business and customer platforms to education and learning environment. What does it mean? We can have a digital learning environment which is AI supported, and it is individual. We have global knowledge distribution, and we have intelligent support systems. By the way, in Finland we have already social healthcare system which supports is digital supporting, and we can as well share this experience what we have in social healthcare in education. The current crisis, this is a situation at the end of March. About 185 countries closed, schools are closed totally, or there is distant education, and almost 2 billion school children will have a resort to remote education, and probably hundreds of millions will be left out of education. This is article I've written with Professor Watanabe and Dr. Navet and our message is that innovation is required, not optional in education. And I speak now about smart learning. What does it mean? It is highly interactive. It uses virtual reality solutions, and the content should support wide variety of platforms. And teaching must be in classroom, in formal and informal environment, and this system must be adaptive, and it must be used some computing tools to help learners. And in Finland, we have the situation like worldwide that we have used at the moment distance remote learning systems, and it could be now very important to collect this experience worldwide from various countries, how these remote learning systems work, and how we can share our best practices and collect this information together and develop then a new kind of digital learning platform. In Finland, as I told, Minister of Social Affairs has already built a national social healthcare system in Finland, and we can use this experience to develop similar system in education. And central role in national system would be student database and digital learning material center. There, in addition to traditional contents of contents producer, book publishers, universities, companies, and the media could work together. Here is the outline how the smart education system in Finland could be. This is only a plan. We have realized already some parts of it. So smart means in self-directed, motivated, adaptive, resource-rich, and technology-embedded system. The plan is to collect such a database and information systems based on Finnish curriculum. We could have in the classified material, as I told, from books, other materials as well. And we have portfolios and students monitoring system, assessment systems, and school content systems, students and teachers. And the system is, in system we have smart student assistant and smart teachers assistant. Then we have this platform independent user interface, and through this telecommunication system, this system is connected real time to schools, and if learners have mobile devices, it comes to homes and as well in hobbies. So practically for learners, this is a so-called pocket school system where the material comes from the centralized system. So Finland could be a leading country in developing digital education culture, support teachers, learners, and this technical system. What this will be in future? In centralized learning material production, more could be invested for content production. Namely, in Finland, 80% of the cost are this printing the book, delivering the books, and if the material is digital and it can be available in this database, we can invest more money for contents. The inclusion of the media as a part of the school system can bring real-time information into the school system, and the system will be built in Finland, could be a model for other countries. And the Jyväskylä University could be a center of developing this system. Thank you very much.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, as you can see here, the goal of my UNESCO position is inclusive literacy to all. It means that my plan is to try to help everyone to get the basic reading skill. And how it could be possible is the goal of my presentation now. So let us go to find out how it can be done. As you can see, we have run a very ambitious study from birth to adulthood, trying to find out how we identify children who are in need of help due to dyslexia. So we started by following 200 families where they were waiting a baby, and started following 100 of those who were at risk, familial risk due to the parental dyslexia, and 100 who didn't have such background. And as the final goal of this very long longitudinal study, we ended up building a learning environment which could help those whom we show are at risk to help them to preventively to learn to read. And you see a number of people were involved. How it can be done? In transparent writing, where the consistency between written and spoken language is very high. So at letter sound level, one can know how to read the language, like Spanish, German, Finnish, Estonian, African languages. Every letter represents only one phoneme or any grapheme. Some of them are 2-letter or 3-letter compounds which represent certain phoneme. If one learns these phonemes which are represented by each of the letters, one has got the basic knowledge how to read by inventing how to put these sounds in the order of letters. And we have had a very big project where we have studied this connection building training in a number of countries, as I will show you next. How it goes is illustrated here. The learning game, which is used for this purpose, it works to transparent writing like Finnish this way. So at the beginning, 2 or 3 letters, which are sound-wise easy to differentiate, are falling slowly down, and the child gets via headphones sound of 1. And the task of the learner is to point this letter which is representing the sound, the phoneme he or she gets from the headphones. The right side of this picture shows how the target sound which has come via the headphones, the center is N, and how this sound is chosen to be represented by different letters, how the learner initially makes errors, choosing very often M or L instead of N, And this distribution here shows that if there are not like we see in the context of U and A here, or A here, the wrong choosing of letter is not common among these whose distribution is widening. But those which are not widening show that they easily make errors in choosing L or M to represent this N sound. It illustrates, gives immediate feedback of how the child is learning when one gets this type of trials where one sound is coming via headphones and at the same time the letters are falling down from the display. This shows how 700 at-risk kids are learning to read Finnish, where they had to learn only these less than 40 connections, including the phonemic length, which is sometimes making difficulties. About 2 hours is enough for most of them to learn most of the sounds of the letters, as you can see here. So the letters are the vertical line and time is on the horizontal line. But the situation is much more complicated in English, where practically none of the letters is representing the same sound everywhere in written English. And this means that we have to use such connections between spoken and written which are behaving consistently. And I will show next how this goes. This should be much larger unit. This is consistently behaving. So if we have small units like consonant, vowel, relatively small items, or if we have larger ones, we can see how the most consistent connections can be learned most efficiently, or they are helping most efficiently learning to read English. We should not connect or condition such connections which are not true always. And this is why we have built the game in such a way that they learn only something which is true always. As you can see, none of the letters in English represent the same sound. The first, most consistently behaving letter is this letter which is shown here first, which is in fact E, not what is how it is named in English, which is very strange that it's named in the wrong way. Most commonly, 62% of its occurrence in spoken English is E, and so on. We can see that some of the consonants are relatively consistent, but experts say me that none of the letters are 100% consistent, which means that we have to use larger units. It shows how the game is going when we have these larger units. Children have to point the item which they are hearing from the phones, and this way they can relatively fast learn the connections between spoken and written. This can be also be the scheme from which the learner is choosing the letter sequences which are representing the sound one has heard from the headphones. When we have small and larger units like CVs and VCs compared to larger units like CVCs, we can find out that the larger units tend to be more efficient, as you see from the next slide. If you use this small unit, which we call here small phoneme game, we get 0.47 standard deviation points per hour learning. And if you use this rhyme, large units game, it is a little bit more efficient game. And these, both of them are much more efficient than very expensive best typical intervention which has been published by Hatcher and colleagues. This shows that the game where the child is teaching him or herself is much more efficient than human teaching of the same thing. Please. This all, of course, can be applied everywhere in the world because all the writings are based on the same principle. The spoken language which the child is able to speak before one starts to practice learning to read has to be connected to written language so that one can learn to read. We have huge number, as you can see, children who are and people who are not able to read. And independent of whether the reason is biological, meaning dyslexia, or education, like in Africa, where in many countries practically none learns to read today, and whether it's social reasons or not, child is not getting support for being helped to be engaged to practice. Every such situation is open to be handled using this game, which is working in all available devices and very cheap ones as well. So what we can have done is to build this all on the evidence-based foundation, so that everything we do is done first by collecting evidence that the version of the game built for certain language, whether it's English or some other language like French or African language, is made in such a way that when this game is used in the environment, this language is read, we then have shown that it really helps the child to learn. So careful study of the written language environment, evidence-based documentation that the implementation of the sounds and the letters are correct, and also attempt to have the local Ministry of Education to accept the distribution in such a way that everyone, including the teachers, who in Africa are not necessarily knowing how to teach, because African teachers nowadays are trying to teach the local language, but have learned at school age English, which means that they don't know that it's not ABCD, but what they have to introduce, but ABCD, because the writings are very transparent in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. This tells you about the practical things. It's available to Finnish kids. It has been available to Finnish kids long time. We may have 1/3 of the age cohort playing during one single day this game, which teaches reading of Finnish. Most typical kids learn it very fast. They need not to play it for hours, only less than an hour may be enough for most. But if the child is at risk of dyslexia or is affected by dyslexia, then many hours may be needed. And the optimal way to go is to use short sessions, not to avoid them becoming full of it, several times per day in subsequent days, and starting at the time they enter school, so that they cannot get experience that they are poorer than the other classmates. It's very important. This picture shows in which countries we have been running our studies to document that it's validly implemented and it's really effective. In 16 countries, it is now under distribution to everyone who needs help. And in many countries, it's still under study, like in India and so on. Okay, and we have a very, as you can see here, we have very well-informed experts from these universities, which are shown here, helping us. Today, our main collaborator is Haskins Laboratories, which means a network of hundreds of experts of language and reading who are helping us distributing it and making studies for distributing it in many countries. Their role is take everything ready for Southern American kids, and we are trying in Finland to make the African children to be helped. This slide summarizes all the important information you need for learning more. Like if you wanted to have a reprint of these hundreds of papers we have published, which can be seen from my page, which is my name info. You can order whatever of them or see them from Frafolearn info, which contains the most important papers, so that this research which is associated to finding how it helps children to learn is collected, or the references are collected, for example, there, and there are some demos as well. And this Springer paper is an open access paper which tells the background research, which is summarizing the studies associated to this longitudinal follow-up of children from birth to adulthood if they have biological reasons to need this type of help. And this human technology paper, which is also open access paper, there tells the basic principles of the game, how it works. So thank you very much for your attention.
Dear participants, dear friends and colleagues all around the globe, it's my great honor to welcome you to the University of Jyväskylä's UNESCO Chair and Council for Creative Education's celebration of the United Nations World Creativity and Innovation Day on the 21st of April 2020. My name is Kristóf Fenyvesi. I'm a researcher of STEAM learning and multidisciplinary education at the Finnish Institute for Educational Research. With these brief opening remarks, I would like to thank you all who are participating in our online conference titled Embrace Creativity Amidst Covid-19 Crisis. At the moment of recording this talk, we have more than 600 registrants from over 60 countries. This amazing response shows the global recognition of the vital role of education in overcoming this critical period. I would like to encourage each of you to share your insights and send us comments. Use the comment function in the channels. Please think together with the speakers and tell us, what do you think? We need you to join this global conversation, as we all need to work together to provide the best learning opportunities to all. According to UNESCO statistics, there are already more than 1.5 billion children and youth who are being affected by school closures. The COVID-19 crisis makes all of us into learners, and we need to give more social and emotional support to each other in these challenging times. In this new era of social distancing, we have to be more creative and innovative than ever. We have to invent new practices in building social and emotional bonds. We need more voluntary actions and a wider basis of common responsibility to reach all those children, youth, and adults who are not only left alone in the lockdown, but who are also locked out from the opportunities to fulfill their basic needs for intellectual and physical development. It is clear that we need to find new ways to connect from person to person. This is an essential condition for learning, after all. Humanity needs to show again, perhaps as never before, that a single genuine idea can spread faster, that it can mutate and grow stronger than any virus through the various creativities we collectively possess. The idea to extend the United Nations call by celebrating the educational creativity and innovation in Finland came from two very creative and innovative friends of mine, Shirin and Heram Kulkarni. They are the founders of the Council for Creative Education. Their team, let me mention by name Boranam and Shamika Indamar, worked diligently to quickly switch into COVID-19 mode to transform the 7th International Symposium on Creativity into a full-blown online congress. The idea was received enthusiastically and has rapidly grown into a significant global effort with the support of the University of Jyväskylä's UNESCO chairs. Professor Pekka Neitänmäki and Professor Heikki Lyytinen and the research assistant Matti Savonen. Professor Neitänmäki's academic focus on digital platforms for transforming economies and his team's innovative applications for the Finnish education, healthcare, and other public services, along with Professor Lyytinen's academic focus on inclusive literacy learning for all, which have included his creative development, the Graphogame digital learning environment, is providing a firm background of these global efforts. We are all very grateful to all the speakers who jumped on board for our first call and worked hard to record their talks in the very short window of time that was available. 2020's World Creativity and Innovation Day is certainly very different than it was ever since its inception in 2002, when this day was first organized by the Canadian creativity expert Marcy Sigal. However, the original goals of the celebration are on display today in a brighter light than ever. Raising awareness of the role of creativity and innovation in problem solving, calling for economic, social, and sustainable development, overcoming barriers through creativity and innovation are all needed today to overcome the crisis. We need your creativities and innovations to ensure bright new futures through learning for all. With these words, thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a great time during our conference. Thank you very much.
Okay, so hello everybody, and thank you for coming to listen to our presentation on sharing good practices for organizing teaching during the COVID-19 crisis. My name is Kati Clements, and I am the coordinator of Learning Technology Accelerator project, and I'm here joined with
Saana Mehtelä.
And we are both from University of Jyväskylä, Finland. So we are going to be talking to you from that perspective. But first, a couple of words about LIA project. Now, this is a Horizon 2020 funded project which has created a network of learning technology buyers. We are talking about learning technologies and innovation procurement and how that can help the schools and the buyers.
The schools and teachers were struggling in Italy due to the coronavirus outbreak, which forced teachers to move their education online rapidly in one day. And the teachers had varying skill levels in arranging the education, and the schools also were diversely prepared. The situation in Finland is that the schools have been closed since 18th of March, and they are estimated to stay closed at least until 13th of May. In Finland, the infrastructure, however, is on a good level, so the schools can give iPads and laptops to students who don't have them at home, and the networks here are mostly high speed. But like in Italy, the shift has been very rapid and the teachers have varying skill levels. And because of this, we decided to create the Facebook group, which is called Organizing Teaching During the COVID-19 Crisis. And it is a channel for sharing experiences of how to arrange teaching. And we also do research on how the changes affect education practices. And we have members from teachers and edtech companies, and we have discussed topics such as how the crisis has affected daily teaching practices and what are good digital tools to use with students.
So some of the interesting things that have become now specific for this particular crisis is, of course, the disturbance of presence of family members. Also, the network speed has not been so great when a lot of people are using the same softwares at the same time. So even Microsoft Teams has been struggling and has been really slow. And the teachers have been experiencing the workload being really high. And also how to estimate the workload of one student. Basically, from Finland, we have seen the two different models rising in this situation. So one is the kind of like easiest model where you are just giving homework. So you just give some sort of explanation of the assignment. The student then completes this task by writing a text or taking a picture of the activity and or making a little video and then uploads them back into the system. And the teacher can give feedback individually. But then, of course, the more advanced version is that there is real-time sessions over video conferencing that the teachers are holding and the students can participate. And in this model, the teacher can give feedback in real-time video format. And so, some of the tools that the Finnish teachers are using are Microsoft Teams, particularly then Google products, Zoom, but then also these kind of like Finland-based products like pida.net. That was basically so overcrowded that on the first days there was no way for the students to actually get in there and even see what assignments they were supposed to do. So clearly the kind of servers are overloaded. But there are also some positive things rising at the moment that we are seeing, and some feelings of success. This situation has forced teachers to actually start teaching online, and they have realized that yes, they can do it, something that they have maybe been avoiding for years, and we can see that they are helping their colleagues, and also that they realize that they can use the knowledge that they already have to deal with this situation.
Yes, and finally, here are some other interesting points to consider. For example, it's interesting to see which tools will stick with teachers. And so basically, what are the key qualities of the edtech tools that will be used in the future besides price? Also, what kind of permanent changes will there be in how education is organized after the crisis is over? So, in other words, are teachers learning to teach during a crisis, or are they learning a new way of teaching for the future? And finally, we hope that cross-sectoral collaboration and sharing of good practices has the potential to inspire innovative solutions for future education. And here you can see our contact information if you have any questions. And here is again the link to the Facebook group and Lea webinars. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Hi, my name is Tiina Mäkelä. I'm a postdoc researcher at the Finnish Institute for Educational Research at the University of Jyväskylä. I'm going to describe you a case in which experts in Finland supported educational institutions when they went to distance learning. A little bit of background first. It was Friday, 14th of March, when Finnish Information Processing Association and the special interest group, DigiTutor, started inviting experts to write this kind of a quick distance learning guidelines for educational institutions. It was anticipated that there's going to be urgent need for that. And then on Wednesday, 18th of March, there was a nationwide school closure in Finland. Nearly all educational institutions started their distance learning. And the same day, Wednesday 18th, there was a video conference. Up to 200 experts from different sectors were participating. And the goal was to discuss the content and the structure for these guidelines. We used Google Docs at this phase. And then already the same week on Friday, there was a first version of the document published and shared in different forums. And this document, unfortunately, is in Finnish, but it's published under Creative Commons licensed in Wikibook. And there's a link to that if somebody knows Finnish or wants to use the Google translation or something. But I will explain some of the contents. It includes both general and then school level specific recommendations. There are also one section for non-formal education, different academies, for instance. And there are parts for beginners in distance learning, and on the other hand, for those who are more advanced in this topic. And then there are also it's not only about learning, but there are also topics related to well-being. I thought maybe one of the most important thing was to discuss and write some guidelines for those who are absolute beginners in distance learning. And we discussed and wrote some minimum requirements, what is important to identify in the beginning, what are the tools for working and communicating. It was important to describe really well the tasks and activities and keep a schedule and deadlines for them. And then what was important to think is that if the students need to return their work, how do they do it? And how educators can provide guidance and feedback during this period. The recommendation that everybody agreed is that it's better in this case to use tools that institutions and teachers are already familiar with. We also discussed about the importance of identifying those students that really need special attention. Maybe they are less self-directed, or lack motivation, or need some additional support. And so maybe we agreed that it was important to focus a bit more on helping those students. And the main recommendation was that there should be materials for self-study, and then the time that everybody would be together would be for questions and clarifications and discussion, a bit more like a flipped classroom model. But we also discussed that in Finland, it's also possible that there are families with no smartphones, computers, or bad internet connection. Or teachers with little knowledge of these issues. So one very practical way to communicate was to put instructions to the envelope and ask families to pick them up from schools. At least at the moment, this is possible, and to return the tasks there as well. Telephone was also found to be a very useful tool, although at the moment in Finland there's this discussion whether who pays the bills, because not all teachers have a work mobile. So there are new issues that arise all the time. And then what was also identified are the television programs. There are actually quite a lot of educative television programs that can be included to the timetable. In relation to well-being, what was discussed was the importance of clear communication. It's very important to understand that the distant learning situation is different. You can't see everything that happens. Students can't see what you do, so you have to be very explicit as a teacher with everything. And on the other hand, you can't see what the students do. So one thing is that you have to ask questions more than what is needed. That's better than asking too little questions and assume you know when you don't. There are also issues related to importance of regular interaction to avoid loneliness. Individual conversations are also very important to check how the individuals are doing. And on a social level, a good social climate can be maintained with a group chat, for instance, using names of everybody. We also discussed the importance of thinking what is important for the group. What are the rituals? What are the jokes, funny stories that everybody knows that could be used to cheer students up? And then one aspect was also physical exercise and some learning by doing activities, so as to maintain physical activity during this time. And then for families, it was made really clear that schools are in charge of distance learning. It's not homeschooling. Parents are not teachers in this situation. But what parents should do is to support and encourage their children and help them to create and maintain daily routines, when to study, when it's time for sleep, meals, leisure time, and so on. And it was also discussed that it's important that parents are positive and patient and understanding. Having too high expectations at this moment is probably not beneficial. This was also mentioned by the Ministry of Education in Finland for all teachers and parents and students alike. And one important aspect is also that parents should feel free to contact the teacher for help. They shouldn't think they have to cope with the situation by themselves as a family. Okay, these were some examples I wanted to bring out of this case. And I hope that you stay safe and healthy, and I hope you can apply maybe some of these aspects in your countries and cultural context. These examples were from Finland, but probably we're all facing similar situations at the moment. So thank you for your time. Take care. Bye.
Joy Chen. Thank you for having me at this conference. Since 2019, I have been doing doctoral research at the University of Jyväskylä in the field of gamification of children's coding education. And before I came to Finland since 2016, I had been working as the product manager of an IT company in China for a business program called Coding for Children, where we developed an online game for children to learn to code. And we also designed plenty of courseware in which gamification was applied. And by distance education, cooperating with a charity organization, I have been teaching coding for the left behind children in a mountain area in Hubei province, China, since early 2019. Nowadays, as the COVID-19 pandemic is raging across the world, in many countries, school education has to shift to distance education. Today, I will share my thoughts on the major problems of distance education for children, and I suggest that gamification can be a solution to some problem.
There will be 3 parts of my presentation, as you can see on the slide. First of all, I will briefly introduce the progress of the epidemic in China, which is the background of my topic. Well, how did this global crisis start? The timeline begins at the end of last year. On December 30th, 2019, a warning was sent to the outside world via social media by an eye doctor named Li Wenliang in Wuhan, China. He said that patients with infections similar to SARS were found in the hospital he worked. This doctor was later regarded as the whistleblower of the epidemic. However, public information released by the local government stated that the virus found in Wuhan was the limited human-to-human transmission that could be controlled. On January 20th, 2020, the leader of the expert group of the China National Health and Safety Commission admitted to the media that the virus was definitely passed from person to person. At 10 a.m. on January 23rd, 2020, Wuhan, the city with a population of over 11 million people, was closed. January 24th, 2020, was the beginning of the Chinese New Year holiday. And from then on, cities and even small villages in China started to control personnel access, and people did their best to stay at home. On March 31st, 2020, a research article published on Science indicated that the control measures conducted in China interrupted and delayed the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, and the findings could be useful to other countries. Now let's look into the distance education currently conducted in China. On January 27th, 2020, the Ministry of Education of China decided to postpone the start of the 2020 spring semester. Before the schools are officially started, most schools began online distance education at the end of February and early March. Children learning coding from me live in Enshi, a mountain area which is 500 kilometers away from Wuhan, and it is also in Hubei province, the epidemic center of China. The good news is that all my pupils there are safe. They are now taking distance education managed by their schools from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday to Friday. Now that my pupils have been taking distance education from their schools for more than 1 month, I did a questionnaire survey. From the results of the survey, I found that the children take distance education with smartphone, and the courses are existing online teaching videos selected by the teachers. The teachers assign and gather homework through social media groups. There's no worry about data fee because the government provides poor families with free data service. Here is a video shared by one of my pupils about how he is taking the distance education. And I found some major problems in the distance education as follows. 1. The children's guardians have to supervise the learning. Otherwise, the children cannot focus on the long-term study by facing the smartphone day after day. 2. There's little communication between students. 3. Excessive use of electronic devices may do harm to children's health. Besides the problems, all the children reply in the questionnaire that they prefer to go to school, and compared to classroom teaching, the distance education is boring and tiring. Contrast with my pupils' coding study, Apparently, the key is the right courseware design. I cannot provide a perfect solution to all the problems, but at least there is a solution to the first problem. To keep children interested and persistent, it is necessary to replace passive learning with active learning, and gamification has been proved to be effective in my practice of distance education in coding. Here I will share 3 example courses I taught the children to code during the pandemic. The courses are designed not only to teach the coding knowledge, but also to let children acknowledge the ongoing events. And during such a critical crisis, it is also important to care for children's mental health. Therefore, in the courseware design, I try to guide the children to have a positive and optimistic attitude towards the epidemic. So now let's just play with the courses. We use Scratch, a block-based coding language developed by MIT Media Lab. It makes coding like a traditional game, building blocks. That is always fun for children. And the Raspberry Pi is the hardware we use. The first course is to make a classic dodge game. We need to let the player use arrows on the keyboard to dodge the virus, and meanwhile get more health points by touching the personal protection equipment, the face mask, the goggle, and the hand sanitizer. The second course is to make an animation about the correct way of washing hands. The third course is to make a chart to analyze the COVID-19 situation in a country. As we can see, to learn the 3 courses, children don't need supervision from their guardians, as the courses are designed to get the children interested and involved by playing with the graphical coding blocks. When the children accomplish the coding missions, they accomplish learning the related coding knowledge. To sum up, traditionally, distance education is a supplement to school education. However, if a crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic happens, distance education is likely to become a vital educational approach for quite a long time. Some experts predict that the COVID-19 crisis could last 2 years based on current knowledge. That would be a major change, especially for children's education. Under circumstances, I propose to strengthen the related research on gamification and provide effective courseware design. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Luisa Lenta and I am an Italian teacher. I teach in Codogno in a primary school. I want to tell you about how I organize online lesson and learning events in the red zone. Before mid-February 2020, no one could indicate on the map of Italy where Codogno was. No one had ever heard the name of it, and no wonder, Codogno is just a small town about 50 kilometers south from Milan. But from that day on, after Codogno became the epicenter of the outbreak, we inherited a notoriety that made it very famous all over the world. Since the very beginning of the lockdown, I tried to keep alive my teaching style, the one my pupils were used to. It is based on creativity, collaboration, connections, share emotion, feelings, co-built lessons and learning math through movement, daily live events, sharing, and positive attitude. We were not prepared. It was very difficult, but we tried to make our best, and I immediately contacted the representative of the class, and she acted as the intermediary. We used WhatsApp, we used video, we used Zoom meeting, we created a Google Drive, we kept the electronic register constantly updated in order to help everyone not to be left. As I am an equiner, enthusiastic teacher, I set up immediately also a new e-twinning project. I called it the Red Zone, Isolated but Connected, because we had received so many messages, videos, drawings, emails, WhatsApp from our partners in Europe by e-twinning projects and Erasmus project. And this was the way to keep everyone in touch and to make also new friends. The one isolated connected with the one outside the red zone. And this is a very successful project. The message is what we wanted to transmit was that we are not alone, even if we are isolated. And through e-twinning, we can travel across Europe and we can connect with a lot of friends. The families are playing an essential role in helping us, in helping all the teachers. I am very lucky because the parents understand that the school has changed and that we need their support. I ask also the pupils to teach their parents on how we are working, and therefore now the whole family is involved in the teaching learning process. This is very important for everyone because it keeps us busy with a lot of positive activities. I gave the task to plant some seeds and to take notes of their growth. This will help them to see things in perspective and to transform the fear of these moments into positive energy. When we will go back to school, we will make our class garden of the heart, and it will be wonderful. They are looking forward to doing this together. We decided to create some little animals for our garden. The first one is the gecko. I asked them to look for the meaning of the gecko and what it represents. It is resilient, it is adaptable, it can change and survive. It is a symbol of regeneration and new life. This is what we were looking for. We organized also online birthday party, and it was great. Everyone who had a birthday prepared a big cake or biscuits and shared the pictures with all the kids, with all the class and parents. They helped the families to prepare, and then they showed to the rest of the class. But this was also the Greco Day, the first World Math Day, and we had decided to make a party as well. So we dressed up, we created our masks and our cakes and biscuits, all math themed. They have been so happy and so enthusiastic to do this. 3 times a week we have online lessons, and the feedback is very positive. They have mobile, tablet or notebook. Online lessons are about maths, science, arts, English, Italian, and the feedback is wonderful. If you want to have a look to our school website, you will find everything we are making in the 3 dedicated new areas we created. At the very beginning, I organized also a webinar about origami and storytelling to keep their minds and their hands engaged, and therefore help them to face the situation with courage and positivity. It has been a great success, and also the kids from all Italy and also in Europe, friends from Europe attended to this seminar. This emergency is giving us great lessons we should safeguard and put in practice. Everything related to family, school, social life, and relationship are now distorted. The challenge is to overcome this situation and to be able to reconstruct and reconsider everything with respect, care, and tolerance. A lot of resilience is what we need now, and the passion as well. If you don't believe in the things you are doing, you can never reach the top of the mountain.
Hi, we're STEAMing, a team founded by Taiwanese youth that devote to promoting STEAM education. The constant change in education policy, along with the rapid shift of education trend in Taiwan, result in a vicious cycle for all students, parents, teachers, and pre-service teachers. Therefore, that is why we decided to make a difference. That summer, we were honored to receive an award from Ministry of Education, which allowed us to visit the UK and Finland at the government expense. Through the visit to local schools, NGOs, and teaching ed firms, we realized that no matter how high your degree is at, where you come from, or what you major in, we are all fighting for better education for our next generation. Hence, as young adults, we should not turn a blind eye on it anymore. As soon as we came back to Taiwan, we found this STEAMing and started to brainstorm on how to shape the STEAM education in Taiwan.
It is said that a teacher has the ability to affect 30 students. That means 30 teachers have the ability to affect 900 students. Therefore, we decided to kick off training of educators, hope to maximize this influence through the resources and manpower we now have. Through the interview we conducted, we can see that the majority of teachers do have a passion of education. However, no help was provided to them on how to pick and purchase teaching aids or on how to use the tool properly when they were still students. After they graduate, they were all worn out on fields every day and have missed the prime time to explore this area of unknown. Thus, our idea is that teachers can rent out teaching aids we purchase as well as their corresponding lesson plans, which are on cloud for free. Moreover, for the purpose of adapting the lesson plans for all kinds of students, we also consult teachers to rearrange and discuss the lesson plans, enabling one lesson plan to fit in normal classrooms, gifted classes, or even club activities. In terms of the design of the lesson, we integrate the concept of design thinking into the lesson, for the student to grasp the world and take them into action via a humanity-centered action.
In 3 months, we have held 5 workshops, which is 60 hours of lesson in total, guide more than 30 teachers and 500 students, being interviewed by a radio station, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs allowed more people to understand what the dreams of the youth are. But how did we manage this as university students?
Our most dominant help results from abundant resources from the Youth Development Administration. under the Ministry of Education. For instance, the Youth Action Program, through the 3 stages, pitching inventive ideas, visiting overseas, and putting the idea in action, allow us to carry out a greater social and international influence, showing Taiwan and the rest of the world a brand new perspective on the matter. We will not be able to achieve any of these, or even the stage today, without our trip to Finland. In addition to the assistance of the government, we've also received aid from the private sector. As the world's largest semiconductor foundry, TSMC provides 3 million new Taiwan dollar every year for the youth to fulfill their dreams, wishing to clean their CSR whilst assisting students to pay attention on social development matters. With advice from a mentor, we've decided to work as a startup in the education industry this year, hankering to provide sustainable resources for our dreams.
On the path of fighting for a better education, we have not only broken the age and experience limit with passion and resources we have gained, we have also proved that the empowerment for the youth by the youth is possible. We wish the world would be more supportive for the youth so that all of them could have more courage in fulfilling their dreams, which can lead the society to a better direction.
Lastly, we're deeply sorry for missing the opportunity to gather around with everyone due to the COVID-19 virus. Therefore, we decided to share our current situation and hope to overcome this crisis with each of you. We consider Taiwan has accomplished a great job in this epidemic catastrophe. When the President of the United States was still claiming this virus a corona flu, Taiwan has already started to adapt plans for this epidemic on December 31st, which was the next day after Dr. Li Wenliang warned everyone about coronavirus. Albeit Taiwan has been constantly discriminated internationally, we still devote to pay back global society after the pandemic in control in Taiwan by donating 10 million face masks around the world to fight along with every country. As regards the education field, although we are located only 100 miles away from China, we are very blessed to control the epidemic quickly enough to become one of the 6 remaining countries that have not suspended schools. Since the whole country is busy on preventing the virus, elementary school students participated by making sanitizer robots with Legos to attract kids. This further proves that it is possible to empower the youth by the youth, and it is happening right now, at this very moment.
And I'm honored to share the Zone tool with you. In the next 6 minutes, we'll take a quick trip to 6 dimensions, turn the resulting 6 coordinate axes into a virus, and then reimagine the virus as a possible key to existence of life on Earth. Let's start by getting grounded. Stand up, stretch your arms like a tree reaching for the sky, and feel gravity pulling you straight down toward the center of the Earth. Now imagine a line from the center of the Earth piercing straight up through your heart, through the top of your head, and out across the universe. This line can be called an axis mundi, a sacred Earth line that connects the underworld, the Earth, and the heavens. Why is it sacred? Because you are. Imagine you're a baby again. You crawl down a hallway and come to another hallway that intersects the first one at a right angle. At that point, you decide to stand upright for the very first time. Pretty exciting to discover something that took us 60 million years to figure out. You're standing at a right angle to the floor, and you can go north, south, east, or west. So you've also discovered three-dimensional Cartesian coordinates. The three dimensions are perpendicular to one another, and the point where they intersect right in the middle is called the origin, with coordinates 0, 0, 0. Just as you always expected, you are the center of the universe. You can collapse these three coordinate axes into a plane. It's what you're seeing on the screen right now. In fact, it's how you see everything. Vision starts with light reflected from 3D objects projected onto the spherical plane of your retina. Projecting 3 dimensions into a plane is really useful. In addition to seeing, it's good for photos, movies, x-rays, blueprints, drawings, paintings, and all other sorts of enhancements to vision. If 3 dimensions can be projected into 2, can you see that 4 or even higher dimensions could be squashed into 3 dimensions? We can squash the Zone Tool's blue lines into red lines. They look like X, Y, and Z, but the angles aren't right. The 3 lines are no longer mutually perpendicular. Or are they? What if they were projected from another 3-dimensional space at a hyperangle to our 3-dimensional hyperplane? There's still room for another 3 lines to pass through the origin. It's like a whole other 3-dimensional space perpendicular to our world, right here, right now, that we're not even aware of. Incredible as it sounds, it's true. Zone Tool's red lines are projected from a 6-dimensional hypercubic lattice into our 3-dimensional world. So let's take our 6 coordinate axes, connect the dots, and we get an icosahedron. That's Greek for 20 faces. The icosahedron is a minimum energy structure, meaning it's lightweight and very strong, like a buckyball or a geodesic dome. It's a great shape for the protein shell of a virus. Fill it with genetic material and cover it with spikes, and you get a simple approximation of a virus. This is one amazing little battle star. When it gets inside you, the spikes attach to a cell wall and inject genetic material into your protoplasm, shutting down the cell's normal functions and converting it into a tiny factory. The virus clones itself thousands of times. You can almost hear the plant foreman yelling, "Package and ship it, package and ship it. Oops, screwed another one up. Doesn't matter, just package and ship it." Mutations happen, and the boss doesn't care. Eventually, your cell explodes, releasing the bad news to attack thousands of other cells. With no defense, a virus could kill you in a few days. Fortunately, there is a defense. You have an immune system. It's a complex network of cells that identifies, kills, and remembers foreign invaders to prevent future attacks. In fact, it's the only cure for a virus. If you get a flu shot, you're giving yourself a mild case of the flu, so your immune system can recognize and destroy it whenever it attacks. But because of sloppy quality control, a new and better version of the flu will emerge next year. Life goes on. Now, how do I feel about viruses? I don't like getting sick. I also don't like the terror that swept the planet because of COVID-19. But I do think a virus is totally cool. It seems as lifeless as cosmic dust. In fact, it could conceivably remain in the vacuum of outer space at absolute zero for millions of years. But as soon as it encounters the right conditions, it springs into action with almost robotic precision. Is it dead? Is it alive? Is it some kind of bridge between non-life and life? What was the universe up to for the 8 billion years before the Earth was born? How long would it take to invent something as simple, elegant, and gnarly as a virus? What if some cosmic event peppered the universe with these bad boys? Imagine a virgin planet covered with oceans of water. Among water's remarkable properties, it's a universal solvent, and there's growing evidence of a liquid crystal phase that causes it to store sunlight as electricity, perhaps making our first oceans the ideal primordial soup. Add a little viral stardust, and voila, the whole show gets underway. 5 billion years later, the planet is populated by beings so brilliant, so gifted, so godlike, they can understand and mitigate viral attacks on their own population. In fact, they could literally create heaven on earth. That would be us. Let's make it so. Thank you. I've had the great honor of working with Steve Baer, Clark Rickard, and Mark Pelletier. Baer discovered the 31-zone system, which is the mathematical foundation of the zone tool. Rickard suggested adding the green lines, expanding Baer's discovery to 61 dimensions. Pelletier understood the system even better than Baer himself, and dedicated his life to explaining it to the world. Without these three men, the Zone tool would have been impossible.
Good afternoon. I'm happy to have this opportunity to meet you at least by video, and that with this conference we can exchange at least some kind of results and thoughts. We teach now in a very different way that we were used to, because the new situation in Israel is that campuses are closed, the library have no access. Students have variable access to software installed on the campus, but as we will see, the students that I address in this course are a specific population with not always a good access to software installed on the campus. And we have commuting limitation. We cannot go out of our homes beyond 100 meters, except for very, very important reasons, going to buy food or to the pharmacy and so on. But it's very, very, very strange and very limited. The new learning environment spread out now among different locations. The teacher is at his home and the students, each one is at his home. The specific Orthodox population that I am teaching in this course are students who are new to academy, that they have a long experience of learning and of autonomous learning. So they are object-oriented, don't waste time, and they want to learn and to achieve what they have to achieve. But they are accustomed to learn in pairs, what we are calling chavruta, two students learning together, each one asks the second one and so on. And from time to time, there is a kind of frontal lecture in order to settle what they have learned and to correct what they didn't understand. But generally, they don't do it over the internet. They don't do it using neither a smartphone. They don't have generally internet from time to time. They don't have it at home. Therefore, also the communication between them and the communication with the software installed on the campus is impossible. So we had to find new ways to do that. And sometimes they had to install internet despite their reluctance to do that. Within the course, we need software. We need a dynamical geometry system. We need a computer algebra system, and we need the skills for both kind of software. The DGS because of his high interactivity, and the CAS in order to have his high computational abilities. And though we can have a communication between them, we must have communication between them. And this communication can go that way. With the DGS, we can have exploration, and it is interactive, so we can drive it by using the mouse and so on, and to have some kind of conjecture. But in order to check the conjecture, the CAS implemented in the DGS may be not enough, and so we need a heavier CAS in order to make the analytic computation. And then from the output, we can have an animation, but this animation is not so interactive as the DGS can do. And so we take it back to the DGS and we compare the first exploration with what we can do now with the analytic results from the CAS, and we can check whether our conjecture is true or not. But in this networking of technologies, we have to add another layer, because now it's inside a very, very large environment with different locations. So the teacher needs to have this internal networking with the DGS and the CAS, but he broadcasts what he has to teach. It can be in a synchronous way, it can be in an asynchronous way. So when we have a session, I record it in order for students to be able to listen once again, to have the explanation once again. But they can also send me an email, they can send me a WhatsApp, they can ask during the session. So we have a two-way communication between teacher and students. There is also communication among the students themselves, and one of the students took the responsibility to be the convener to check whether everyone knows when there is a meeting, whether everyone received the different links that he needs and the different files that he needs, and that everything is okay, and that then communication can be done in an efficient way. It can be done over WhatsApp, telephone, Moodle, and so on. And we hope that there will be benefits of this confinement and this new environment, that all the teachers and the students will develop new skills, and this environment will remain an available environment, and we use it because there are other reasons for students to need distance learning or to need an asynchronous way to communicate and to have something from their teacher. And as a teacher can send to the students a lot of other materials that they can need to develop new mathematical environment and new mathematical knowledge. We hope that this will be done and that this crisis will be over very soon, God willing, and that we will be able to meet face to face. Another kind of meeting that we wanted to have was this conference, CAJME, in June on the campus of Jerusalem College of Technology. And we had to postpone it. There are no flights, no possibility to meet face to face. Anyway, the Israeli government decided to cancel all the international conference already 2 months ago. So we had no choice than to do that. So we postponed this conference to June 21 on the campus of Jerusalem College of Technology. We invite you to be part, even if you didn't think about that for June 20, but for June 21, now you have time. It will be a wonderful conference with a wonderful list of speakers and labs and so on. So please come, we will be happy to meet face to face, happier than in a regular situation, because now it will be after a crisis where we are deprived the possibility to meet face to face. So I invited, I will be happy to have you here. Bye, thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Janika Leosta and I come from Tallinn University, Estonia. Currently, I'm a junior researcher on educational robotics in School of Educational Sciences, but I'm also an adult robotics educator on the field, how to integrate robotics into the teaching activities in kindergarten and basic school. My today's topic is about lessons learned by taking ongoing robotics in-service teacher trainings online during Covid-19 crisis at my university. First, I want to open the challenges I faced as an educator, and then I want to bring you the collective feedback my learners gave me about their aspirations to sustain their teacher professionality when being locked down at home. Finally, I'd like to share with you some thoughts about the new possibilities the time of uncertainty has posed us as robotics educators. The day I heard we are going to close the university for face-to-face teaching was just a day after I had finished a full-day robotics training with kindergarten teachers. Before they felt the class, I asked, what if we can't gather anymore for a while? Do you prefer to go online or postpone our next training until the situation is over? And all of the class responded me, let's postpone. The online is not real. It was even kind of the relief for me for some days until I realized that the situation might last for months. I took back all my words I've been explaining others for years about why robotics courses can't be taken online and started creating a scenario how to make impossible possible. The first barrier was the robots. You can't teach hands-on robotics without robots. Of course, we didn't have 50 sets of different robots at our university EduSpace lab, but our training participants had at least some of them at their workplaces. We sent out a letter for teachers telling them what robots we are going to use during the trainings left, and asked them how many of them they can borrow from their workplace with the tablet. Based on the answers, we placed an order to buy some extra robots to the lab and then delivered all participants missing robots, tablets, and the chocolate bar. When packing, we considered all safety instructions. The time frame between packing and opening of the delivery had to be at least 3 days for avoiding any possibility to spreading virus. The second barrier was a quite biased attitude towards online teaching. To give participants the clue how it could look like, we decided to conduct a consecutive online webinars explaining Zoom environment in general and the collaborative and communication features in particular. Some of the teachers took part in all these consultations to make themselves more familiar with online teaching. Some of them were in doubt because of the low quality internet connection, or not having a device, or not having enough learning space at home. To overcome these obstacles, we proposed video recordings of our training sessions. Finally, all participants were ready to accept the online learning challenge. So far, we have conducted 2 full days and the feedback of participants has been very positive. Their children have benefited of having so many interesting robots around, and their self-confidence of solving small technical problems with robots has skyrocketed. I have also asked these kindergarten teachers how they have continued the professional development on integrating robots while being isolated from children and their workplace. Not surprisingly, they have continued developing their digital learning resources about robot-integrated daily activities. They have prepared and shared H5P-based interactive learning games to their learners, and they have tested new learning designs with their family members. They want to be ready and have more activities prepared when the crisis is over. What will happen with my online robotics teaching? Does it survive when returning back to the normal life? I think so. The lessons learned and will be learned from current crisis for robotics educators are needed for developing online teaching methods and curricula. Right now, I'm redesigning the International Robotics Summer School course to make it able to be taught online. And I can't deny that I'm excited. Instead of being afraid of uncertainty that the emergency remote teaching has brought to us, let's take it as a challenge for scaling up our knowledge. Thank you.
Hello, I'm delighted to join you all today, and I congratulate the host and organisers on putting forward such a wonderful celebration of World Creativity and Innovation Day. I've changed the title a little just in order to reduce the takeaway message in 6 minutes and to share some explicit key connections with the materiality of the latest practices and thinking from this side of the globe. COVID-19 has pushed us globally to find new and vast ways of authoring change, and this is involving a mutuality of disciplines, a mutuality of creativities, all the sciences enacting in partnership to create and seek and figure out how to live our lives and realize our responsibilities in a safe and healthy sustained way. And in doing that, we're thinking together, yet apart. Let's call that interthinking. And let's call that about the connections between national and international health systems, national and international economies, budgets, societals, change and education. And a book which has recently been published and authored chapters by our panel also seeks to sustain and create anew ways of thinking about education for future generations. It argues at its core that there should be no separation between science and arts, that curriculum should be seeking to value diversity of voices, diversity of languages and experiences, and to do this in a way that brings together and connects disciplines. And this means, in essence, that both science and arts are ontologically and epistemologically inseparable and situated at the core of knowledge creation. Thinking about these new configurations of subjects in forms of authorship that is needed in order to sustain life, then we are reminded of Leonardo da Vinci's observational ways of thinking anatomically, aesthetically, rethinking flight, invention, arts at the interface of all disciplines. So this new space for reconnected and reconfiguring the ways we work with subjects in schools is at this point being engaged in not dissimilar ways in society as it attempts to solve the COVID-19 crisis. These three youngsters feature in a chapter that we co-authored, which show insights into how these 16-year-old students see themselves and configure subjects in a mutuality, responding to the question of creating an art piece that shows their understanding of the relationship of maths and arts. Now we see the placement of the car on the left in relation to mathematical expressions set in the background as they fade out in perspective. Both are articulated with and through the other. Both are affected by and affect each other. Both are entangled. We see with the middle drawing Anika's math artwork, which she seems to be finding inventive ways to work carefully with the details of patterns of thinking in their materiality of mathematics and art, as predicated on her own view of herself. She's making connections. She's reworking math art realities involving space, time, and the mattering of thought patterns. She is offering insights and understandings of practices of knowing. And then we see on the right-hand side a young man who's done a self-portrait, a learner from what is learned as a way of being. But he can't separate the learner from what is learned as a way of being and as a form of knowing, and his experience of the subjects and how they're judged and how he is judged as a mathematician. The artist seems not to separate the mathematics from the art. He shows evidence of superimpositions, these new patterns, creating the effect of difference and mark where learning has occurred. But the learner is not separated from what is learned. So in not separating what we're learning at this point, with the myriad of markers of what makes us human, and this mutuality of disciplines, and the mutuality and multiplicity of creativities being performed as we speak, then in this time of COVID-19, in the future post-COVID-19 world, we are being given the opportunity to co-create a new normal. And in this new normal, the making of a common world, co-authoring a new mutuality of disciplines, co-authoring diverse creativities that sustain and unite people across national borders, and co-authoring new partnerships. Finally, to quote Tim Ingold, who has the last chapter in that book, he says, quote, "To untangle our thinking with the tangle of the world means finding a way into and through its labyrinthian mesh. And that is where we are, finding our way through this crisis is a matter of creativity and innovation. It's a matter of co-authoring a new mutuality of disciplines, of new diverse creativities and new partnerships. And I look forward to developing new partnerships with you, through you, and from this conference at a later date. Best wishes to you all.
Good afternoon. Our current global circumstances remind us of the crucial role of creativity, not only for survival, but for sustainability and resilience, in good times and in bad. The COVID-19 coronavirus has reminded us how inextricably we are all related and how urgently we need to work together for a collaborative creative response, a creative relational response. When corporations, states, and national leaders try to cause fracture, to politicize the crisis, and to commodify its solution, the Director General of the World Health Organization cautions us to maintain unity for our survival. But unity is not always at the forefront of market competition, including standardized testing, productivity measures, and standardized rankings. Testing students across the OECD countries, the incoming PISA assessment for creativity thinking will roll out next year in 2021, with results to be published in December 2022. It's been called both controversial and imperfect, but it will profoundly impact the way creativity is taught and valued in education systems worldwide. In whatever way you construct your list of 21st century skills, you'll always come across creativity in some form or other, said the head of the PISA program for the OECD. He stressed future jobs are likely to pair computer intelligence with creative skills, adding, quote, "The dilemma for educators is now that routine cognitive skills, skills that are easiest to teach and easiest to test, are also exactly the kind of skills that are easiest to digitize, automate, and outsource." PISA is an incredibly powerful driver of education strategies in countries around the world, but it's still a standardized test. The Lego Foundation, like many other transnational corporations, believes that the PISA test will build clarity in place for creativity in schools, but particularly, they say, in recognizing play as a critical way to enhance learning and skill development. But what does play have to do with standardized tests like PISA? Well, both my own work and my research lab, Creative Agency in Melbourne, chart how individual experience now needs to expand into a more linked up relationship between macro and micro notions of creativity, not just as an individual trait or skill set, but through a creative ecology. With initiatives like the PISA assessment and changing national curricula, the macro of creative education is clear. But the micro of creative education continues to fail that goal at both the individual and collective level. It's a failure, I've argued before, of communication, but also a structural one. Compulsory education is still not taking a sufficiently systems approach to making lasting structural change in creative terms. Vlad Glavino's Sociocultural Manifesto for Advancing Creativity Theory and Research from last year claims that creativity will become a necessity for the dignity and even survival of the human species. He reminds us of two key points: that one, creative action is at all times relational, and two, that creativity is fundamental for society. So, what might a creative relational response look like? Well, many scholars, including Jonathan Wyatt, Brian Masumi, Aaron Manning, and Rosie Berdati, have theorized a notion of post-human subjectivity, or a creative relational approach to global sustainability. Creative relational approaches consider how the relational, including both human and more than human actants, work for social and environmental justice and sustainability, and in ways that can help us cope with the complex and often painful challenges of the contemporary world, including the current global pandemic. Manning and Masumi have also considered ways to keep the relational going under increasingly global economies, and how collectively produced techniques can be disseminated outward into participants' respective home environments and ecologies in ways that are unique to each context, like Chen's approach to keeping both the macro and micro in conversation across cultural and creative divides. In his book, Asia as Method, a creative relational ecology celebrates individual strengths and the creative collectivity. Schools, like pandemics, urgently need this set of shared skills and attitudes, not just for economic or academic success, but for global survival and true sustainability. Perhaps, as Wyatt, Berdati, and others help us see, relationality is the new productivity. Or maybe it's always been. Maybe it's the old productivity, because things happen: work, love, joy, through the relational. Even, one might argue, standardized testing is a relational exercise. We're always already part of larger communities of practice. We just need to remember it. And sometimes even terrible challenges like COVID-19 help us remember our unity, as well as our need for creativity and creative adaptation. They remind us that we're all part of a creative relational ecology that we must now help sustain. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
My name is Cilla Lazar. I represent a small community education center in Miercurea Ciuc, Romania, central Transylvania, a rural and quite isolated area, a multi-ethnic region, rich in natural resources and cultural heritage sites, so quite a nice spot where one can hide away in global crisis times. I would now like to shortly introduce to you an Erasmus Plus project entitled Everyday Creativity, implemented in cooperation of several educational organizations across 5 European countries. The project has been coordinated by our organization, the Spectrum Educational Center, but the most important role concerning expertise and content development had our Finnish partner, the University of Jyväskylä Department of Teacher Education. What was the starting point of our project? The global urge of rethinking and reshaping education is probably even more evident in Romania than in most European countries. as we seem to have a never-ending educational crisis. We had 27 ministers of education in just 30 years since the fall of the communism. We had several educational reforms, and unfortunately, we still have one of the poorest PISA results in the EU. On the other hand, as most kids in Romania got access to the internet and to smartphones, we noticed that the virtual environments engage them more, motivate them more, influence them more, and maybe supply them with more relevant knowledge and information than schools do. Therefore, the Romanian society is in a desperate search of solutions. How can we make our schools better places for real learning? Looking at various educational systems across Europe, and especially the ones that are considered highly successful, like the Finnish educational system, we noted that we need to increase creativity in all aspects of education. As an inspiration for our term of creativity, our colleagues from the University of Jyväskylä suggested us a model of multiple musical creativities developed by Pamela Bernard. We think that Bernard's model of multiple musical creativities is relevant beyond musical education, so we substituted it with multiple educational creativities. This contextually situated view of creativity is empowering for the learners because it allows them, on the basis of their social and cultural background and experience, to be active producers and thinkers rather than consumers and reproducers of knowledge. For the project purpose, we made a new interpretation of the terms used by Pamela Bernard, substituting modalities, practice principles, and forms of authorship with learning tools, technologies, materials, learning methods and strategies, and communication with learners. Based on this triangular approach to multiple educational creativities, we have developed an online self-assessment and self-reflection tool for teachers, which is accessible on our website in Dutch, English, Italian, Hungarian, and Romanian languages. An in-service training course for teachers developed and facilitated by a team of Finnish experts led by Tamás Péter Szabó and Kristóf Fenyvesi, both researchers of the University of Jyväskylä. The course had a modular structure and was built up of 3 phases: an initial online phase, a 5 days on-site training in Jyväskylä, Finland, including school visits and international workshops taking place at the university, and a follow-up phase where the participating teachers carried out local development projects between January and April 2019 in various schools across Europe. The course content and the description of the follow-up project has been published in a teacher's handbook in all project languages, and it's available on our project's website. The project was a great opportunity for teachers from different countries to exchange experience and to get mutual support and motivation. And now we are a bit nostalgic about such great creativity fairs and conferences like this one organized last autumn in Csíkszereda, Romania, where over 250 teachers took part. Probably we won't be able to attend such uplifting gatherings for quite a long time from now on. But we are immensely thankful that we could involve over 440 teachers in various training events in all the participating countries, and I would like to highlight for you just some of the lessons learned in this process, lessons that are now probably more important than ever. That at times of obligate online teaching, teachers need pedagogical awareness to fully understand the effective and impactful use of technology. That cooperation and connection is more important now that we miss our classmates and friends so much. Teachers must find ways for remote teamwork, for cooperation and for co-creation. that cooperation among teachers has become more important than in offline teaching times. Another challenge that all teachers face now, reimagining the learning space and stretching it much beyond the classrooms, being creative in formulating tasks and using everyday objects instead of on-the-purpose educational tools. And as a last but very important example, teachers have to reflect on the purpose of assessment. Assessment should be dialogical and interactive, and it has to keep children engaged and motivated in these hard times. I am thinking that maybe time has come to redesign our creativity self-assessment tool for teachers and to make a new self-reflection tool for online teachers. And I am also sure that once we collect the challenges, the creative solutions and answers of thousands of teachers across the globe in these weeks, maybe months of education in confinement, we will have a powerful resource bank that can indeed help us rethink education. Thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jukka Sinnemäki, and today I would like to share a few significant lessons what I have learned in my teaching career. I had a student 17 years ago. He was quite shy, but he always did his homeworks. He didn't cause any problems. So as a young teacher, I thought, what an ideal student. When he left the school, I got to know a totally different person. With full of joy, great sense of humor, he was a great athlete, incredibly creative, innovative. I couldn't see that while I was teaching him for 2 years. My teaching methods couldn't find him. I was disappointed. Let's see a short video clip of Juho's creativity and joy. Won't stop the search and I can't sleep till you're back here with me.
Vertsu, mikä meininki?
Ei mitään. Täällä on hyvä asua, -30 sisällä.
Another story. One day there was a knock on my door. It was the second last day of the school year, and actually this girl was leaving the school. She had a very difficult background, and when she handed this oil painting for me, she said, I want to leave at least one positive, one good memory of myself. And I was so touched when I understood immediately the importance to be seen and to be heard. And we as a school really couldn't help in her terrible, difficult situation. But before she left the school, she wanted to make sure I'm someone and I value. I'm unique. And this really changed my perspective as a teacher, as an educator. So my question is, which part the educator should influence? We often just see the visible 10%, but how much more there is hidden, how much more uniqueness is unseen. I feel that in the school environment too often we give too much credits, we praise too much the easiness and the speed of learning. But what if the schools, the way how we do schooling, those don't meet the needs outside the school or in work life? What's the number of unseen and unrecognized students? How much we praise the perseverance, how much we praise the passion, that they try hard, they don't give up, they have dreams, and we can help to achieve them. There was a cool study that when we actually really can see the wholeness and the uniqueness of human being, and we can offer them suitable challenges, how our brain reacts. And I think this is so cool. So what happens in our brains and why? Because the brain does not believe that failure would be a permanent status. We fail all the time, and that's great, but we rise up and go further, stronger. Before we watch a short video clip of my previous classroom, I wanna bring one more thing. It seems that nowadays there is so many things to do. We are distracted all the time. There is constant stimulation. There is disinformation, information. There is multitasking, and the list goes on and on. But I want to highlight here, where is the balance? Where is the time of silence? Where is the time to be only with our own thoughts? I believe that the balance is so important. If we are constantly stimulated and distracted, it really decreases our passion, our motivation, our creativity. So let's not forget the importance of silence to be able to be healthy with our mind and body and really produce something unique, beautiful, and be passionate about it. And this little video clip of my previous students hopefully shows, and actually this is a reflection of their 3 years journey. When there is a unity, they trust each others, they feel safe. So basically, the sky is the limit. come to the end. Learning happens when you see the unseen in every child. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Arts for Social Change, the creative outreach of the amidst project is the title of my presentation. My name is Andrea Carpati and I come from the Corvinus University of Budapest. The project is part of the Acting on the Margins Arts as Social Sculpture project, an international endeavor executed in the framework of the Horizon 2020, one of the grants which has a very interesting name, Socio-Economic and Cultural Transformation. We are a University of Economics and we have social consciousness and also different programs in social science and communication. So this is a grant for us, very relevant activities. Here is the compound of nations, countries that are working together in a mass, from Sweden to Malta, spanning through Europe, Finland, the United Kingdom, Portugal, the Czech Republic, and finally Hungary. Of the projects, I'm going to tell you a bit more. Creativity in the times of crisis is the title of this conference. But what do you need to stay creative in crisis? You not only need your fantastic creation skills, but you also have to be resilient and self-assured. So these are these two sets of skills that we strive to develop. Resilience develops appropriate adapting strategies, while self-assurance through developing communication skills and divergent thinking will result, we hope, in a sustainable creativity. Something that doesn't go away when the grant period is over, when the project is gone, but will change how poor kids are normally educated in schools, in the arts, in this country. It is a beautiful training program, overall, a beautiful curriculum. We want to make it relevant. The Hungarian amidst projects you can see on the screen. I'm not going to discuss them all. I just highlighted one word, teachers. It is the students we want to do good to, but it is the teachers we find the key agents in change. So what we have to do is to train them, to offer them an online journal, to do mentoring for them, and of course to introduce them to high art that is also relevant, which means contemporary art. At Corvinus, we are embarking on a communication program in a top 200 business university. We are embracing young Romani women, young Gypsy women, to use a more understandable term, whom we are going to train in communication, but also in self-assertion and in resilience to use communication skills in their business. We are working through art. The Ludwig Museums project that I want to very, very briefly describe to you now. It's a contemporary arts museum, and perhaps not all of you know that contemporary arts are life relevant in our times. They are issue-based, they are socially challenging, they encounter you, they shake you, they want to lead to better worlds. So the Contemporary Arts Museum is offering relevant cultural experiences with contemporary arts and to enhance communication skills and creativity
at the same time. Not just artistic self-expression, but communication you can use when learning different disciplines. Also, Ludwig Museum is situated in the border of two worlds. Museum office buildings and elegant housing on one side, on the other side, ghettos of the poor. Low SAS families who never go to the Ludwig. However, it's just a few steps away, but now they will. Because our project in MS has the title, It's Your Life. We want to show these kids, with the help of museum educators, conductors, media designers, that in group interpretations of artworks, through sound painting, a beautiful creative method of visualizing sound and creating art that is in turn musically relevant, and through process drama, which means using art, using contemporary art, to challenge issues of your own life, represent them, give them shape, make them beautiful, or not so. Anyway, make them tangible. Be resilient in creating, act together, and perhaps change your viewpoint, change your perspective about life. And if I still have a minute, there is a very, very messy last slide, which shows you a previous good practice that proved for us that art really helps. Image, Sound, Language and Numbers was the title of an interdisciplinary project for multi-grade schools that we conducted 10 years ago with Katalin Munkácsi, a mathematics teacher, and Eva Molnar, an assessment specialist. We worked with 21 multi-grade schools, poverty-stricken. We taught mathematics through visual arts, visualization, scientific imaging, and it helped.
It is an honor to address you in this time where we are seeking to further understand and celebrate the role of creativity in the solving of modern era problems. With the backdrop of a global pandemic whose spread into our species is aided by just how small our world has become, we ask, how do we create the new world that will be post-COVID-19? Hello, I'm Christopher Brownell, a professor of mathematics education and co-author of Math Recess, Playful Learning in an Age of Disruption. My original purpose today was to talk about how COVID is presenting unprecedented opportunities for creative solutions to the educational enterprise. I was going to discuss several important shifts taking place in mathematics education towards valuing creativity, integration, and divergent thinking, along with connections to data science, which is rapidly becoming a more critical topic than ever before. I wanted to describe how new connections to the arts world were being made in schooling owing to the efforts of several people here today: Pam Bernard, Zsolt Levica, Krzysztof Fenivesh, along with a group called the International Coalition of STEAM Educators. These people are finding ways to bring forth a new focus in mathematics and STEAM education. But then COVID really hit, and April 11th happened. You see, my talk was supposed to be about playfulness in mathematics and play in mathematics education. But the very idea of playfulness in mathematics lost one of its greatest practitioners to this virus on April 11th. John Horton Conway found his stride in mathematics when he solved the Leech lattice problem in 24-dimensional space. 24 dimensions. I can barely fathom that. In the 1960s, he had befriended Martin Gardner, who by then had become a regular author in the Scientific American's Mathematical Recreations column. Conway was a common contributor to this column, along with being one of Gardner's go-to mathematicians when he needed to understand a thing. Conway started his work in the areas of mathematics known as group theory or knot theory, number theory, but he also invented games and played games avidly and studied them. He was fascinated by the game of Go. The video you are watching has a GIF file of a game that he invented, the game of life. He created this game wherein cells in a square lattice live or die based on the status of the cells around them. Played originally with paper and pencil, we see order developing from seeming chaos. The Mac Tutor History of Math's website estimates that more computer hours have been dedicated to the game of life than any other single application. The science of cellular automata have gained great headway into many applied fields, such as flock behavior in birds and how other cells interact with each other. Yet all of that owes its beginnings to Conway's playing around with ideas and generally playful attitude towards learning. What you see now on the screen is a completed game of Sprouts, another Conway invention. This game can be played at home with a friend or a child. You draw several spots on a piece of paper, then each player in turn draws a line, which could be curved, between two spots, possibly from one spot to itself. Then you place a spot between the two connected spots on the line you drew. Simple rules govern the gameplay. New spots always split lines into two parts and so cannot lie on an existing spot. No line may cross another or itself, and lastly, no spot may have more than 3 lines attached to it. This is a fun and easy game to learn and can be played for many hours. But if you try to play strategically with a large number of dots, you will find your skills of foresight to be greatly challenged. John Horton Conway was born in 1937, lived in both the United Kingdom and the United States of America. He earned literally dozens of awards for his contributions to mathematics, was a celebrated inventor and discoverer. He came down with a fever on Wednesday, April 8th, checked into a hospital in New Jersey. He then succumbed to COVID-19 on April 11th and is already sorely missed. May he rest in peace. If you are interested in learning more about the STEAM education community known as the International Coalition of STEAM Educators, we invite you to join us in the Google group. You may find the link in this slide. Thank you all, and I wish you well.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be part of this conference, and I will talk about our research and development at Johannes Kepler University in Linz in Austria. So first of all, I will talk about our doctoral program and GeoGebra, the software which we are developing, and then share some ideas of our research in STEAM education. Our doctoral program now have more than 35 PhD students working on different topics in STEAM education, but we organize many conferences and meetings, and we encourage you to visit us sometime, either in present or online. And we also developed the open source project, open source software, GeoGebra. We started about 25 years ago by Professor Markus Hohenwater. So now it's become a very well-used tool in mathematics and different subjects. It has a large community with more than 100 million users from around the world. And it's originally was designed for secondary schools, but now it's used from primary to university level. And also because it's a community, the community is sharing resources. So there are more than 2 million resources available on the web. And then also the community have many members and institutes all around the world to help support users and teachers, students, researchers. So I encourage you to become a part of this community as well. And on the same time, what we are doing is working with the community and then also with our research group to work on creativities and innovations. So we are trying to enhance creativity in education by defining it, measuring it in different ways, and then encourage teachers and students to develop skills in relation to creativity or creativities. So essentially, what we are doing is developing research and technologies and looking at pedagogies, policies to create the conditions for innovative practices in education, which could be quite useful in this strange period of time we are living in. So I will give you some examples of the technological innovations in which we are carrying out. So our software and applications are available on most platforms, and then we try to optimize it for different uses. And we try to create an online environment for students and teachers to connect, create virtual classrooms, assign the different activities, and then work together in this kind of environment. We have GeoGebra books, which is a possibility to create teachers can create their own textbooks, same as for students, and then work with these textbooks as well. And also now we are developing an online collaborative space where students from all over the world can work together on the same problems. And same for assessment. We have features now which is being integrated and tested into testing and exams. And then there are many different calculators or dynamic software could be used with this testing application. Same with augmented reality. So the augmented reality in which we are providing through our development is to put the different mathematical objects or model mathematical objects within this tool, and then that could offer opportunities for students and teachers to discover the mathematics around them. And if they work with augmented reality or modeling objects, then we are working with 3D printing. So all the materials what we are creating can be done with 3D printers, and then we are creating lots of exercises, puzzles, and games. And then also we are working with many artists to create materials for students, and then also using the techniques what we are using in 3D printing. For the online resources, there are many resources available on the web, but we are trying to look at that how we can evaluate the quality of these resources, and then support these resources for the teachers and the students most appropriately. Similarly, we are trying to use some machine learning activities to create activities and then automatic feedback for teachers and for students as well. So in relation to the pedagogy, in relation to the technological innovation, we are looking at pedagogical innovation. We try to see that how we can integrate gamification, how we can create a platform for different gamifications for teachers and students for their own purposes. And a large element of our research is how to connect physical and digital worlds, how we can move between the online and the offline world. So we use 3D printing. We are creating lots of manipulatives and activities which is connecting the two work together, which could be quite useful in this time. So we are using augmented reality, 3D printing, and also digital environments to connect physical and digital worlds. And then we try to create a new era of manipulatives, which is also physical and digital as well. So, for example, taking a picture of students and then rotating it with the software and printing it and have a physical base for all the students, or some simple problems to divide the cube into equal parts, and then students can offer many solutions and then learn different parts of mathematics, and then also connect it with other subjects. Similarly with our games. For example, my student just recently created a competition in Luxembourg for students to create their own Easter egg cups. So Ben is working on developing activities. And at the end, I would like to show you some of the cultural influences. So students live in this digital age. And then Giulia Bini in Torino is looking at how we can use memes to teach mathematical topics, and then how these topics can be integrated into the classroom and to the teaching, and then also encouraging students to work with us. So these are some of the topics. We have a list of topics on our Facebook group, GeoGebra Arts and STEAM, so you are welcome to look at the resources. And it would be great that if you are interested to connect with us, come to our conferences and start collaborating with our team. Thank you very much for your attention and waiting for your questions.
Thank you for joining the online conference titled Embrace Creativity Amidst COVID-19 Crisis. My name is Kristóf Fenyvesi. I'm a researcher of STEAM learning and multidisciplinary education at the Finnish Institute for Educational Research. This online conference is a collaborative effort by the University of Jyväskylä's UNESCO chairs and the Council for Creative Education Finland to celebrate United Nations World Creativity and Innovation Day on the 21st of April 2020. According to UNESCO's statistics, there are already more than 1.5 billion children and youth who are being affected by school closures. This is certainly an important moment to discuss current topics related to creativities and innovations in education. Both creativity and innovation based on critical skills and competences that turn out to be vital in overcoming critical periods. Problem solving, critical thinking, applications of knowledge, responsibility for others is on display today in a brighter light than ever. At the Finnish Institute for Educational Research, our research group is focusing on innovative learning environments. Our field of research has dramatically transformed in the past few weeks due to COVID-19 safety measures. The technologies, spaces, and the emotional and cognitive dimensions of learning and well-being are radically challenged by the isolation. Originally, all of our projects required intensive cooperation with the teachers, frequent school visits and meetings with the students. But now we need to reconfigure all project activities day by day to be able to find a way together with the students and teachers in this new era of schooling out of schools. I would like to share a few snapshots from our most current projects. These projects are implementing earlier results in the development of creative pedagogies, enhancing transversal and digital competencies, inter- and multidisciplinary connections in learning, STEAM education, computational thinking, and modeling. Based on our learning scenarios, our colleagues from the universities of Helsinki and Tampere conducted hands-on STEAM learning workshops for 300 5th and 6th grader students last spring. At that time, before the COVID-19, the geometrical modeling of footballs included the reference to various scientific structures, like the carbon-60 molecule, and several engineering and arts concepts. But none of us thought to extend these experiments towards the icosahedral virus structures. After the COVID-19 outbreak, at our last meeting with pre-service and in-service teachers in the project, we did not miss to call the attention to the icosahedral structures' connections to virus structures. This was also an important opportunity to recognize, with the help of Reidun Tvarok, a virus geometry expert, that we cannot give an exact representation of COVID-19 with our tools due to the helical shape of COVID-19's nucleocapsid and the asymmetric position of its spike proteins. At our first and last meeting with 6th grader students in the Modeling at School project, we practiced algorithmic thinking and computational modeling based on activity diagrams of the hygienic hand wash and of the protocol of what to do if someone suspects of having coronavirus infection. It is actually not a new idea to implement STEAM approach in the development of critical skills and motivating application of learning results by modeling emergency situations. This Korean collection is an excellent example of ensuring safety through the creative and innovative implementation of scientific knowledge. It is impressive to see that how our Serbian colleague Natalia Budinski's cooperation with CraftBot has switched into COVID-19 mode. Before the crisis, Natalia wanted to experiment with 3D printed models in the math classroom. Now, she is modeling and printing face shields together with her students for doctors who are working in the front line of the pandemic. There are several more examples what would be important to mention here. Let me include just only a few more. Our mathematical art project, which became very successful due to our South African colleagues at the Nelson Mandela University, reflecting to the crisis in the language of mathematical art. The huge response received from South African children also during the epidemic proves that there is a great need for cause, projects and activities which doesn't require any special device and can be done with inexpensive materials. In Europe, a country which suffered a lot from the pandemic is preparing to continue their science outreach activities and organizing the Italian STEAM movement also in these new conditions. To get into touch with all these projects, I suggest you to visit the homepage of Innovative Learning Environments Research Group at the Finnish Institute for Educational Research and search for the STEAMnet Education Network. Join us today. Thank you a lot for your attention.
Hi, hello. I'm very happy to be part of this digital conference. My name is Andreas. I'm the director of Imaginary, an organization taking care of international communication of modern mathematics in an open source way. I'm going to talk about the International Day of Mathematics, a project that started a couple of years ago and that was officially proclaimed by UNESCO last November 19, which means that March 14 every year is going to be celebrated, or was celebrated this year for the first time, and is going to be celebrated every year as the International Day of Mathematics. I will very quickly introduce what we did and how COVID-19, the situation, affected the first IDM, International Day of Mathematics. So the idea of the IDM is that the whole world celebrates mathematics in many, many different forms, and locally organized all over the world, doing festivals, doing talks, presentations, all types of school activities. And we as Imaginary were entrusted by the IMU, the International Mathematical Union, which is the driving force behind that project, to prepare a website. So the website is idm314.org, and the idea on that website is to collect whatever is happening worldwide and to offer open source resources, whatever, logos, posters, activities. And every year a theme, a topic is chosen. The first topic is mathematics is everywhere. So you can see everywhere means in geography, in plants, in nature, in computer games, also in viruses, in epidemiology. And also to create a map where you can find all announced events worldwide. So here from New Zealand over Madagascar, back to Colombia, a lot of events were announced. And we had planned two very big launch events for the first IDM. One in Paris at the UNESCO headquarters and one in Nairobi, but due to the situation, both of them had to be cancelled. One was postponed in Nairobi, one which was part of a big Next Einstein Forum conference. And we were not sure what's going to happen on March 14. There were 1,040 something events announced in 113 countries. And of course, some countries already informed us that they're going to cancel it. They put it digital. In Italy, a lot of course, all events got cancelled. And we decided to do a live global launch event. It was a very, very good decision at the end. So we were tracking for this 48 plus hours, which is March 14, starting in New Zealand to the west coast of the US, tracking all the different events that were happening. And it was so cool to see creativity happening in all the different places. So I don't know, people were recording a rap song that they booked online. One person in Italy made a math and art exhibition at home that was shared. There was like a very, very big experiment on this Buffon needle, how to calculate pi in Taiwan and surrounding regions, where many thousands of people joined. There was an online film screening in Uruguay, recorded lectures, recorded events that were shared. And with our global launch, we just kind of informed everybody about it. And we had more than 15,000 unique people on that one website looking at the different events. So 2 or 3 lessons learned. It was really worth to do this global live launch, the digital one, and I'm sure that we're going to do another one, even if there are physical events, so that connected everybody. It was very good also, how would I say, part of the concept that it was all kind of local and grassroots, so creativity could spread because there was no guideline or directive, so everybody did what they wanted to do, and this helped a lot to create a movement feeling, a joint celebration feeling. Language was a big issue too, so we prepared the material in many languages. The logo was translated into 27 languages, and even if mathematics is one language, it's really worth talking your local language. Yeah, I invite you to join the project. Go to idm314.org, and now there's a call out for the next theme, 2021. So if you have a good idea, join us, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
rainbow. Yeah. Because we have this ukulele here now, and then it is also in the kindergarten.
And I can